All right, today we're diving into a real cosmic puzzle. We're talking about Shiva, the destroyer, the creator, the lord of the cosmic dance. I mean, gods and demons alike, they all worship him. And yet, he's completely shrouded in mystery. The biggest question of all? Where did he even come from? That's the mystery we're going to try and unpack.
And right away, you hit this massive paradox. If he has no mother, no father, if he's the beginning and the end, then how could he possibly be born? It feels like a total contradiction, right? But the answer, believe it or not, is tucked away inside ancient Hindu texts, and that's exactly where we're going.
So the key to understanding this whole thing comes down to one really powerful Sanskrit word, Swayambhu. Now, according to the Shiva Purana, one of the most important sacred scriptures, this means self-born or self-manifested. You see, Shiva doesn't play by the usual rules of birth and death. He just is. He's a being that existed before the universe ever did, and he'll be here long after it's gone.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. When you start looking at different scriptures, well, they don't all tell the same story. And this isn't so much a contradiction as it is a fascinating ancient debate about who is truly the supreme being.
So check this out. On one hand, you have the Vishnu Purana, another essential text. In that version, Shiva actually emerges from the divine light coming from Lord Vishnu's forehead. But then you flip over to the Shiva Purana, and the roles are completely reversed. It says Vishnu was born from matter that Shiva himself created. There's even another account where Shiva appears as a baby in Brahma's lap just because Brahma prayed for a son. So, which story is the right one? Well, this whole debate is famously settled in the incredible story of the Jyotirlinga, the pillar of light. So as Brahma and Vishnu are arguing about who's top dog, this massive, infinite column of fire just erupts right in front of them. To settle things, they take on a challenge, find its beginning or its end. Brahma turns into a swan and flies up for eons. Vishnu becomes a boar and digs down for just as long. And guess what? Both of them fail. And that's the whole point. When they come back, totally defeated and humbled, Shiva emerges from that very pillar. The message couldn't be clearer. He is the infinite reality that contains them both. And you know, this idea of infinite power, it's not just some abstract concept. It's literally woven into every single part of how Shiva is depicted. Let's break down some of these amazing symbols. Ever wonder about that serpent coiled around his neck? That's Vasuki, the king of the Nagas, or divine serpents. His devotion was so intense that he let himself be used as a rope to churn the cosmic ocean to get the nectar of immortality. By wearing the Serpent King, Shiva is showing his complete mastery over fear and death itself. And what about the crescent moon you always see on his head? Well, that's actually the moon god Chandra. He'd been cursed by his father-in-law to just fade away into nothing. Totally desperate, Chandra prayed to Shiva, who gave him refuge in his hair. Now, Shiva didn't get rid of the curse entirely, but he changed it, creating the cycles of the moon waxing and waning, and in doing so, he basically created the concept of time as we know it. And then there's the ash, the bhasma, that he covers himself with. This one is deep. There's a story about this arrogant sage who claimed he was so pure that his body would bleed plant sap, not blood. So Shiva shows up, disguised as an old man, and cuts his own finger, and only ash flows out. The lesson here? Everything, no matter how beautiful, no matter how complex, eventually turns to ash. It's the ultimate, final truth of everything. The thing is, these aren't just cool old stories. They're alive today, forming the very foundation of rituals and realities for millions and millions of people. Which brings us to Mahashivratri, the great night of Shiva. It's one of the most important festivals in Hinduism. For one, it celebrates his marriage to the goddess Parvati, which is this beautiful symbol of cosmic energy and consciousness coming together. And get this, it's also believed to be the very night that the infinite pillar of light, the Jyotirlinga, first appeared. So for devotees, it's a night of just immense spiritual power. Now, this also leads us to something a bit more controversial. You see, there's this story where a deadly poison, the halahal, came out of the cosmic ocean, and Shiva drank it to save the entire universe. To cool the intense burning pain, the gods offered him pong, which is cannabis, and that raises a very modern question. And honestly, the answer's pretty complex. On one side, some texts describe bong as a medicinal herb, a cooling agent, which makes it a perfectly logical antidote for a cosmic poison.
But, and this is a big but, those same traditions also warn that for regular people, misusing it can be spiritually and mentally damaging. So there's a really clear line drawn here. What's medicine for a god is not meant to be a spiritual shortcut for humans.
But maybe the biggest mystery of all isn't found in some ancient text. Maybe it's a real place, a place here on Earth. I'm talking about Shiva's mythical home, the unconquered Mount Kailash in the Himalayas. For centuries, pilgrims who go to this sacred mountain, which no one has ever climbed to the top of, have reported the most bizarre things. People hear strange sounds carried on the thin air, like the chant of Om or the sound of Shiva's drum. They see these incredible, unexplainable lights in the sky. It's also the legendary home of the Yeti. There are even these unconfirmed reports that time itself gets warped there, making people's hair and nails grow way faster.
And look, this isn't just old folklore. In a modern attempt to survey the peak, a Chinese helicopter mission was forced to turn back. As they got closer to the summit, the weather, which had been perfectly clear, suddenly turned violent. We're talking dark clouds, lightning, and their compasses started spinning like crazy. They had to retreat. It was almost like the mountain itself just wouldn't let them pass.
But maybe the most mind-blowing piece of modern evidence comes from space. When NASA pointed its satellites at Kailash, their analysis found something extraordinary. As the sun sets, the mountain casts a shadow that looks uncannily like a giant figure sitting in a perfect meditative pose, a satellite image that seems to perfectly mirror an ancient belief.
So, where does that leave us? We've got this eternal being with no origin story, whose myths define the cosmos, and whose home is an actual unconquered peak on our own planet, surrounded by unexplained mystery. It really makes you wonder, is Shiva a god that you're supposed to worship, or is he a principle you're meant to understand? The personification of reality itself, untamable, unknowable, and totally infinite. Now that is something I think about. Thanks for joining us.